Hey y'all, I'm Jennifer Purcell, and I'm so excited today to have Sharon Hughson with us to talk about her story. Of course, it's him. Now, Sharon writes inspirational fiction that explores faith, hope, and the strength found in everyday stories. A former teacher turned story coach, she helps writers bring their ideas to life. Sharon lives in, I'm probably going to say this wrong, Scappoose, Oregon, where she hikes sunny trails, reads voraciously, and spoils her grandchildren. Now, Sharon, the first question I want to ask you is how to pronounce your town, because I'm pretty sure I just butchered it.
Scappoose, but
Scappoose.
yeah, no, it's an Indian name like so many things. So think papoose. Oh, my baby papoose,
Ah,
Scappoose.
okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Now, my favorite question that I always like to ask, what was the inspiration behind your story?
Okay, so I used to, about 9 years ago, we lived in a city closer to the highway and with less traffic. And I used to actually ride my bike on the highway like 3, 4 times a day in the nice weather season. So, about 3 months out of the year here in Oregon. And I did have to go past these railroad tracks. And every time I thought, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be terrible if and so I would make up lots of different stories about, okay, well, what if you did? And blah, blah, blah. Maybe a mass murderer came by and picked you up, or maybe, some cute guy, so I just make up lots of stories. And this would probably be, I've written the story about this before where it was a stranger who picked her up, not, and it was ended up being a romance, not a thriller-y, since I don't really write or read thrillers. So yeah, I'm actually working on compiling some short stories that I had with anthologies in together, and one of them, the meet cute, is the gal backs out of a parking space and backs into the guy on his bike, and so crunch, crunch, yeah. So, so bike wrecks and meet cutes are just kind of my thing, I guess. I don't know.
No, but I love how you took something out of like just your ordinary day and you used it to make a story. Like that is so fun. Do you ever find yourself and I'm sure I already know the answer to this, but do you ever find yourself getting lost in thought with like these random what ifs as you're going about your routine?
I do. And then people talk to you and then they don't know why you're not answering them. And you're like, what? Were you talking to me? Because I was in my own little made up world over here.
Now, this is obviously a contemporary romance, but I'm curious, what is your favorite subgenre? Because I know sometimes we'll write one subgenre, but like we find ourselves reading a completely different subgenre.
I am all about fantasy. So romantasy, that's kind of a newer thing. Although I like fantasy with romance more. I tend to be romance as my B story when I used to read because I want it to be a little less predictable. I know that romance readers like that predictability. That's what they're for, so they can guess what's going to happen and be swoony about it. So me, I like romantasy kind of more for that. But I also love a good funny rom-com where I'm just cracking up as I'm reading the book. So those are my two.
So have you read any of those books lately, like either a romantic fantasy or a rom-com that you just couldn't stop thinking about?
So recently, actually not so recently, probably about 5 years now. That's recent when you get old. Um, found Tara Grace, and she's an indie author, and she is writes only sweet and clean, and I love her fantasies. And she just recently came out with one, Hearts of Shadows. I wrote it down because I knew I was going to get it right. Hearts and Shadows, and it was a fake relationship, no, like a forced marriage, I guess. I don't know. It was kind of a combination of those two, but it was really good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
All right. I keep hearing people talk about like fantasy and romantasy, and I used to read fantasy when I was younger. And the more people talk about it, the more I'm like, maybe I should start reading that again. Maybe I need to expand my horizons. But okay, so I noticed she mentioned a trope, the forced marriage, which is, semi-popular. in the romance world, but I'm curious, what is your favorite trope? Like the one that you're constantly drawn to?
For me, it is friends to lovers. And I mean, that's what this story is. Sorry if I'm ruining it for people who haven't done it. That's my romance with my husband. We were friends first. And so both my sons actually were friends with their wives before they married him. So it's like, I feel like it's just a lot more realistic, like
Mhm.
that's going to happen. So I kind of like to see how that does that work out, like what makes that flip. And so to me, that's the fun of the story is okay, so why? Why suddenly did that go? Did you make that change to I love you, but now I love you? So, yeah.
Well, is there ever a trope that you don't like, but you like try to challenge yourself to write a story with that trope, or do you just avoid it completely?
I I've taken on tropes that I don't love before. I mean, not all my stuff is um friends to lovers. I like second chances a lot as well. Because who doesn't want a second chance in life? So why not in romance too?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that one too. So now you in your bio, you mentioned that you are also a story coach. So we've talked some for the reader's benefit. So now I want to kind of pivot over to the writer's benefit. What is the best piece of writing advice that you've ever received that you find yourself giving to writers?
So, I had to think about this a little bit, but then I think what it is, it's write your beginning last, but not so much. Okay, so this, a lot of people struggle to get started, right? Because you know that your beginning is so important. If you don't get it right, they're not going to read the next page. I mean, you hear all this, right? And so you're just like, oh, I got to get it right. And so a lot of times that like makes you unable to get going. And so once I went to this thing, which was like, write your beginning last was the name of this workshop. And I went, what? I need to go to this one. What? And she was like, you're going to rewrite it anyway. Think about how many times you have rewritten it because you get to the end and you go, oh, wait, this needs to start differently now because now that I know how it's ending. And so you're going to rewrite it. So take the pressure off. Just say, that's the last thing I'm going to write is my beginning. So, yeah, okay, I'm going to start writing here and go for my story. But I know that my first scene is really going to be the last thing I write. And so to me, it does a lot of duty. It takes the pressure off so you can write. And it also, gives you permission to go back and rewrite that and rewrite that and rewrite and not feel like that's bad. No one else has to do this. No, everyone does this. So
Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna go steal that now. That's perfect. Now, out of curiosity, Sharon, are you a plotter, a pantser, or are you kind of like in the middle?
I'm I'm kind of in the middle. I'm kind of I like to map out the beats of a story. Or with flash fiction, usually I always just have an idea and then I
Mhm.
just let it like blow up. And most of the time it's like 2,000 words, and so I have to cut it down. And so then you're
Mhm.
tightening and figuring, okay, what stays, what goes type of thing. But yeah, I like to let my characters tell me how they want their story to go.
So, do you start by figuring your characters out first, or do you usually just start writing and letting them speak to you as they write?
Most of the time I just start writing. I might have an idea about this character and their problem. And then I just go, okay, so, well, let's throw something at this person so that they can react to it, and then goes the story. So,
Now, a lot of writers have mixed feelings on writer's block. I've heard some that tell me that writer's block doesn't actually exist, and others treat it like a real thing. And they have steps that you can take to get past it. But I'm curious about you. What is your experience with writer's block? Do you agree that it's not a thing, or do you think it is something that we go through? And how do you get past that?
so for after I lost my contracts because my publisher sold, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story. Not what this is about. I kind of went into a creative burnout
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't really write. And so for a while, I kept forcing myself, okay, just show up and write for 30 minutes and you don't want to lose the rhythm and blah, 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 blah. But the way that I actually finally got that creative juice back was to stop and say,
Mhm.
okay, I'm not writing. That's it. I'm not writing. Not even doing morning pages, because morning pages is one of the ways that if I'm in writer block otherwise, then I'll pick up morning pages and I'll do those, and just it's just stream of consciousness writing. Three full pages by hand is so that you get that connection, that tactile connection. But I think there's other reasons why people have writer's block. And I feel like sometimes maybe you need to push through it, but sometimes maybe you need to step back and just let yourself take a break from it.
No, I like that because someone once told me, and I started thinking about that. They said writing is not just actually like sitting down and writing. Because like even if you're brainstorming or you're researching, you're technically still writing. And we were talking about earlier about how like you said that you go about your day and like you'll randomly get an idea. And so I think that's a very good point. Sometimes if you just let yourself take a step back and breathe, you're going to find your creativity again. I like that a lot. So my next question to you, how did you become a story coach?
So I was in Novel Academy and they made some cohorts and they had like prayer huddles is what they call them. And so I was with one and I kind of ended up taking a leadership role there. And they would ask me a lot of advice. I was one who had been published and none of them had been yet. So a couple of them were really close. And one of them was like, oh, man, you're so good at this, blah, 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 blah. And I was concurrently looking at Hope Writers because I'd kind of been wanted to do that. And then they had a coaching certification program. And I went, well, okay. So I had to try out for it or whatever. And so I got certified with that. And one of those gals in the cohort was my first client. She was like, yes, good. Now I can do it for real. And you're really going to help me get my book done. So it just kind of happened that way. The thing is that I did a lot of free coaching, like, oh, 30 minutes free, da da da. And every time it all helped me. And so I knew that it was a real thing, that it would help you if you could have someone just sit with you one on one and actually help you work through your struggles. So, because that's what a good coach is. They have no, and they have zero answers, but they have lots of questions to help you find the answer you need to get going with whatever you're struggling with. So.
I like that. I like that. So, obviously it says in your bio you were a former teacher. So, teacher, do you ever find yourself with your clients getting kind of back into teacher mode?
Sometimes, yes. And it's like, okay, stop. That's not what I'm doing. And sometimes it's like they do want that. They're like, okay, but how would you start? Or what would you do? Or what resources do you know? Or how have you got through this? Because what I found knowing so many writers and working with a lot of writers too is that no two writers have the same process. No two writers have the same way they go at it, don't have the same things that help them or that they work through to get their story out. And so sometimes if you're stuck, hearing someone else's idea to try will help you find your new thing that's going to be your new process that will help you go. So.
Ooh, I love that. Now, before we wrap up, where is the best place for readers to find you and connect with you?
So, I have a Substack and I do write on there a couple, it's called Fun with Fiction, but mostly Facebook, my Facebook page. I know that's kind of an old thing. That's the generation I guess I have. Or if you want to look at my books on Amazon, I do have an author page there, but I do not have a website right now because I wasn't coming out with new books. So it was like, why am I having this? Why am I paying for this? So there isn't a website anymore where you can find me at. So yeah.
All right, sounds good. Well, for everyone watching, I will make sure to put those links in the description. And I will also link to some of Sharon's past stories because she has written for us a lot. And she has written for some really good stories, and you're definitely going to want to check those out if you haven't yet. So, everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Sharon, for joining us. Y'all have a fantastic week and never stop reading.
That's right.